Well, actually,
So writers,
one more question about writers.
yeah.
Do writers come into your orbit, like all of a sudden you start seeing a writer's name more, or you're introduced to a writer, and then that's a way for a writer to get placed on a show, or do writers submit to you directly, or how is it that you become
There's no
aware?
one way. Yeah, there's no one way. First of all, you have to get an agent.
Yeah.
Most studios will not accept unsolicited submissions. You have to get an agent or a manager. If it's through a friend, that's one thing, because sometimes friends who recognize talent, they'll say, okay, I think you're brilliant and I'm going to make this introduction for you. But if it's someone who has absolutely no connections, you have to get on the radar of an agent or a manager and have them help you out and hip pocket you or sign you. Hip pocket just basically means that they're not going to sign you, so they're not obligated to find you a job, but they're going to try to, and then if they find you a job, then you're going to owe them a commission.
Right.
It's sort of it's a win-win or lose-lose, depending on how you look at it.
Right.
So I would say 99% of the time, the way that I find out about writers is my agent friends or manager friends will call me up and say, hey, I've got this new writer, you've got to meet him, really special, amazing, and then they'll do the whole pitch and the sell and this experience and that experience and won this award and this play was produced in Omaha or whatever.
And then you make the introduction to the showrunner?
And then you read it, and then you say, wow, this is really great. And then you call the showrunner and say, oh, my God, I read this really amazing young writer. You should take a look.
Okay.
Another way is if you have access to a showrunner through people, get the showrunner's assistant or somebody on the show to read it. And look, at the end of the day, your work is going to speak for you. If your work is really good, somebody will recognize it, and it will get into the right hands.
Okay. And the other aspect of your work, working with the directors that direct each episode.
So that's a more challenging way to break in, because that's a huge leap of faith for someone who we don't know, because we are entrusting a $2.3 million episode into your hands. So
that you have to execute in a very
7
short
days
period of time.
And 8 pages a day, and set up, shot, with problems that come at you from every angle. And a lot of the times there's no one way to get in as a director. I think that there's a lot of ways to get recognized. Short films and festivals is a way to get an agent, and to have the agent then hook you up. You have to find producers who are willing to take a risk. So, for example, if you meet a director-producer who is willing to let you shadow them, shadowing is the absolute best way to get on the radar of the people who are going to hire you. Because I can recognize a great talent, or a network executive can recognize a great talent, but if you've never worked before, it's really hard to get that first job as a director. And so you have to find a showrunner that's willing to take a risk on you. And the way to do that is to, like I said, if you shadow, then you're showing them that you're invested, that you understand, you can build a relationship with them. And, I haven't quite figured out the best way to crack it. I have a friend from college who, is a great director. He's a big director now in TV. But he had a long haul before he got there. And he had worked in promo departments, and he was directing like little segments for a network's press junket. And somebody said, oh, he's really good at this little 10-minute piece he put together. Let's put him on this show. And all of a sudden, like, one show led to another show, led to another show, led to he's now directed 3 pilots. So it's hard to get in. And once again, same as with the writers. If you've got the talent, people will recognize it, and it will shine through. But that's the hardest part, is to get in.
Now, It's a writer's medium, television.
Absolutely.
Right. And there seems to be, I'll put it this way, there seems to be a lot of pressures applied from different sides. Of course, the showrunner is going to want their voice to be as pure as possible, and the studio is going to want to have input on that, and then the network's going to want to have input on that as well, because they have their audience and their brand and so on and so forth.
And
so
the hope is that all three parties, the writer, the studio, the network, are all sort of speaking the same language.
So then here comes the director that is going to
Visiting director.
The visiting director.
It's that fine balance. It's not like in film where all of a sudden the director takes over and is king. In episodic television, the visiting director comes in and they can bring their own style to a point, because a show has a particular look.
Yeah.
And you can't all of a sudden change. If you've got a show that's, and I don't know the technical stuff, but like a show that's on a dolly, and the whole show is always like on a steady camera.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, this episode we're going to run through the fields, we're going to shoot it kind of like The Shield. It's like, you can't do that, because that's not how the show is shot. What you can do is bring your own warmth and your own style and your own essence, but you have to also be willing to say, okay, I won't do it that way if the producer doesn't like it.
Or the lead actors, because the lead actors no?
Yes and no. I think that it depends on what season of the show you're in and who the lead actor is, and if that lead actor is a producer on the show or if they're just a lead actor. Ultimately, you have to answer to your showrunner. If your lead actor wants to do something, you got to go to your showrunner and say, hey, can I do this? Because I just want to make sure that they're not taking advantage of me.
Yeah, but you're also, tracking a storyline that goes back a number of years and it's going forward a number of years. So anything that you're changing is going to affect more than just...
Which is why the showrunner is the one person who knows all that stuff. They know where it's going. They know where it's come from. They know where it's meant to go. The actor doesn't always know where it's going. 9 times out of 10, they won't read the next script until they get it to the table read. They may not even have the next script. Do you have, is part of your part of your responsibilities encompass dealing with talent, actors on the shows as well? To an extent, but that's really the showrunner's job, is to do the day-to-day, dealing with the issues. And I really only get those phone calls when there's problems.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
I love being able to go to set and just visit and have fun.
Is there anything else that you think would be germane to the conversation? Because I know that you juggle a lot of different things. There is on the representation side, part of your job deals with that, talking with agents and managers, and then there's dealing with communicating with the network. Actually, that would be interesting. On what level, if you can just give us a flavor, what is the type of communication creatively that you would have between the studio and the network? Is it more of a philosophical?
No, while we were down, I was checking my email, and on one of my shows we had we're trying to book a director, and one of the directors fell out, and so there's all these emails flying back and forth between the showrunners and myself and my boss, and we're talking about, this person can't do it. Who do we go to next? What about this one? What about that one? And who do we like? And then picking who we like, and then going to the network and saying, okay, this person can't do it, but we want this other person to do it instead. What do you guys think? And getting their approval and having sort of all of our ducks in a row. Conversations with the network, they range from everything from, my calling my counterpart at the network and saying, hey, we have a really interesting outside-of-the-box idea for marketing for this show. We want to create a blah, 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 blah that we think we're going to take out into the marketplace that would have nothing to do with production but would sort of be in line with the show. And what do you think of that? And then that would then stem into a marketing conversation, because there's a whole different department that handles that. Mm-hmm. But it has to start with creative. I've been dealing this week, we started having conversations about Comic-Con and what shows are we going to take to Comic-Con, and what actors and what panels do we want to try and get, and signings. And I have a show called Haven on SyFy, which is going to be very organic to Comic-Con, but then we have another show Hell on Wheels on AMC that is not necessarily what you would think to go to Comic-Con, and we're trying to figure out a way to boost the presence of that show. It's going into production for season 3. We want to continue to grow the audience, and so we're trying to think of outside of the box ways to do that. There's a really great show that is called Call Me Fitz. It's a half hour with Jason Priestley as a drug addicted, sex addicted, morally bankrupt used car salesman, and it's hilarious.
It sounds
but nobody has seen it. It's in production. It's just wrapped production of season 4. It's on HBO Canada up in Canada, and it's on DirecTV here in the U.S. And if you don't have DirecTV, you've never seen the show. So go to iTunes, go to Amazon, check out the show. And so we're talking about ways of sort of elevating the profile and getting more people aware of it. So conversations that I might have with my counterpart could range from, hey, we're getting a new outline in, let's talk about notes, to a director fell out, what do you think of this person, to, production starts in a week, I think I'm going to go to sit on this day, do you want to go, let's go together at the same time, we can hang out together. Sometimes you go at the same time, sometimes you don't.
So you're you're a liaison that's managing the integrity of the creative concept and the investment.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess last question.